Hey guys, my name is Coach Karis. Today on Fix Your Shitty Movement, we're doing the plank. And I know you're thinking, the plank? Who the fuck doesn't know how to do the plank right? And the answer is almost everybody. So I want you to understand that the plank that is held for, like 3 hours at a time in, the Guinness Book of World Records isn't really the kind of plank that you should be doing. Is that impressive? Yes. Is that useful for you? Probably not. The kind of plank that you should be doing is something called a hardstyle plank. And I want to go over the push-up in the Fix Your Shitty Movement Monday, but we need to start with the plank because your push-up is only as good as your plank is. Because the push-up is also predominantly a core exercise. So when we went over the bench press, I talked about the different positions of your scapula. So remember here we have elevated, depressed, protracted, and retracted. So those four positions, right? You have elevated, depressed, protracted, and retracted. So the proper position in the plank for your shoulder blades to be in is protracted and depressed. So one of the first things you can look for in your plank is whether or not your scapula are winging out kind of like this. And if they are, that means that you're retracted and you're actually kind of hanging out in your shoulder joint. So that's the first thing to fix. To create protraction, all you have to do is push the floor away, literally. So when you do that, your upper back is going to round. And then from there, what you want to do is pull your scapula down your back, just like that, okay? So it's gonna keep your collarbone in this nice open position. I'm gonna just talk about it like the forearm plank. Elbows, wrists in the same alignment, elbows and shoulders in the same alignment. From there, you want to be biased into a posterior tilt of your pelvis. So what that means is you're trying to think about pulling your pubic bone up and in towards your navel without letting your shoulder blades elevate. So that's the hard part, right? So you want to be protracted and depressed, and then, do it from a standing, bias into a posterior tilt. See how that pulled my abs nice and tight? The other way you can think about doing it is using your abs to pull your tailbone down, almost like it's trying to come underneath you. The other cue that I give my clients is to think about their navel trying to come up into their spine or to try to touch the ceiling, right? So you might see a lot of people do their planks kind of like in this position. That's no good. However, you have to know too, different people like myself have a deeper arch in their low back, so it might look like they're doing that, but as long as you're feeling that bias into that posterior tilt, you're fine. Also, you want to squeeze your butt. You want to think about clenching your glutes, because if you do that, that will also put you in that posterior tilt. Remember that your abs and your glutes work together to stabilize your spine and your pelvis, right? Your lumbar spine anyway. And then from there, you want to actually think about flexing your quads. So everybody seems to be afraid to straighten their knees fully, but I want you to know that you cannot fully engage your glutes unless you fully engage your quads. To fully engage your quads, you have to fully extend your knees, not hyperextend, but fully extend, right? So remember that your quad's job is to extend your knee. So if you're doing this all the time, you're not really using the full articulation of your quads. So to do that, you need to straighten all the way, right? Pull this in, squeeze your butt, and then shoulders down and protract it, okay? So that's your position that I want you in the plank. The last element of it is your feet. Now we talked about the toes when we went over the lunge. If you don't remember that, I would highly recommend that you go back and watch that because I go on a foot rant, and I got a thing for the feet, not in a fetishy way, but in a fix your shitty movement kind of way. Most people have really limited mobility, especially in their big toe. So you'll find you kind of roll to the side when you're doing your planks, or that it's even hard to do in bare feet. And that's a sign that you need to get stronger in your toes. So you can warm up your feet like so. If you do it with shoes on, understand that you're probably just going onto the toe of your shoe and not fully into your big toe. But I do want you to make sure that your ankles stay parallel to each other, your ankle bones, I should say. So you can think about squeezing like a ball or yoga block in between your ankle bones, and that you're up on your toes. And then from there, to bring it all together, you think about dragging your elbows and your toes together. Then, I know, there's more to it than you thought. Then you want to think about breathing. When you exhale sharply, I want you to feel your abdominals engage. And every time you exhale, in any other time in your life, I want you to understand that your abdominals assist in respiration. So they are technically also respiratory muscles in addition to their many other functions. So here we are in the plank, right? You got protracted, depressed, tuck your pelvis, squeeze your butt, navel up and in, fully straightening your knees, then you'll be up on your toes, and then you're thinking about driving your elbows down. You see how that engaged my lats? Driving your elbows down and pulling your toes up, which is going to create this almost like turning your body into a boomerang shape, right? Or like a hollow body hold if you're familiar with that exercise. And you'll know that when you do pull-ups, that's kind of the position that you're in as well. So if you feel a lot of your arms, mostly when you're doing planks, it's because you're literally just kind of hanging on your shoulders. If you feel mostly your legs, you're kind of doing the same thing. That's a lot less common. I want you to think about trying to feel your core as much as possible, and know that if you don't, you're probably not using it as much as you think you are. If you feel your low back, you definitely aren't. It means that you're probably hammocking your low back like I talked about a second ago. I'm going to show you guys on the floor. Again, we're going to do the forearm plank. So I start with my toes curled under, and then I place my elbows a little forward of me, because when I come up and extend my knees, then my shoulders will be over my elbows. So make sure that my feet are parallel, and then lift myself up like so. So you can see I protract my shoulder blades and then pull them down my back without arching my low back. And then I maintain that and I tuck up here. You can hear right away my voice changes. That's because I'm using my abs. So I'm trying to pull my knees up into my quads, and now I'm trying to pull my elbows and my toes together. And then I'm gonna do a sharp exhale out of my mouth. And you should see how my abs engage really tight when I do that. If you are working up to doing the push-up, I would work on that and up on your hands, because the other limitation that a lot of people have in push-ups is weak wrists. And so you might find that if you're in this position, especially on one hand, if you do, bird dog or something, that's because your wrists are weak. So it doesn't mean you need to avoid that movement. It means that you need to practice it more, and not necessarily go into a push-up or try to hold a plank for 3 minutes, but maybe just like 10 seconds and see what you can tolerate. Don't work through pain, but really try to get better at that position. Also, one thing you can do if your wrists are really super tight is you can roll up your yoga mat or whatever and put your hand, kind of like elevate your wrist a little bit. That'll take a little bit of that tension out of the wrist, and you can work up to doing both hands flat. So next week, we're gonna go over the side plank, and I'm gonna review this with you guys. And then after that, we're gonna go over to the push-up. The push-up is a master level exercise in Pilates. That's how difficult it is to really execute it correctly. And I can tell you, most people do not, because they completely leave their core out of the equation. I hope you learned something from this. If you didn't, that's not my fucking problem. Just kidding. Let me know if I can clarify anything for you. If you feel like I'm not in agreement with some of the other ideas you've heard before, please feel free to ask me about it, and I'll be happy to clarify my reasoning behind my coaching. My name is Karis. This is Fix Your Shitty Movement Monday. Have a great week. Do your planks, because I know you think you're good at them, but I promise you're not. Do 20 seconds of hardstyle planks 3 times before a workout, and I assure you your back will feel better than ever, and it'll actually increase your power. See you guys later. Have a strong week. See ya.